It was the early 1930s, and the center of the United States began to vanish. What had once been rolling farmland across the Great Plains, stretching from Texas to the Dakotas, slowly lifted into the air. The sky darkened, the wind howled, and the land that fed millions became dust. It was called the Dust Bowl, and it was one of the worst environmental disasters in American history. Perhaps the most alarming aspect of this story is that it was one largely created by human hands. For generations, the Great Plains had been covered by deep-rooted native grasses. These plants anchored the soil, surviving droughts and violent winds. But in the late 1800s and early 1900s, settlers began arriving by the masses, drawn by government land incentives and the popular promise that rain always follows the plow. New machines made it possible to farm more land than ever before. Tractors ripped through the prairie, replacing grass with endless rows of wheat. During World War I, the government incentivized farmers to grow the grain, overlooking the fragile nature of the plains ecosystem. Then in 1931, the rain stopped. Years of drought followed. With no moisture and no roots to hold it down, the soil dried into powder, and when the wind came, it carried away the land itself. Dust storms became terrifyingly common. Some rose thousands of feet in the air and stretched for hundreds of miles. These storms blocked out the sun, turning day into night. People called them black blizzards. Dust slipped through window frames and under doors. It coated furniture, food, and beds. Children woke up coughing, their lungs filled with dirt. Livestock died where they stood, and farmers watched entire harvests disappear, sometimes in mere minutes. One storm in 1934 was reported to carry plain soil all the way to Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. Dust fell from the sky like snow. Ships at sea told of dirt coating their decks. By this time, the Dust Bowl was no longer a regional crisis. It had become a national one. As farms failed, families faced impossible choices. Some stayed, refusing to abandon the land that had been in their families for generations. They sealed their homes with rags and tape, hoping the next storm wouldn't be the one that broke them. Others packed what they could and left. By the mid-1930s, hundreds of thousands of people, often called Okies regardless of where they came from, headed west. California promised work, but the reality was far harsher than imagined. Migrant families lived in makeshift camps along roads, rivers, and fields. They slept in tents, cars, or shacks made from scrap wood or cardboard. Food was scarce. Clean water was limited, and disease spread quickly. Despite the hardship, people found ways to survive and to still feel human. In the evenings, families gathered around campfires and shared stories. There was often music, as someone would pull out a fiddle, guitar, or harmonica, and folks would sing songs together to lighten their loads. Songs about loss, home, and hope. The camps became places of community, even as they reflected deep suffering. Children played games together in the dirt, and neighbors played games of baseball. Eventually, the federal government stepped in, building migrant labor camps with sanitation, schools, and medical care. Conditions were still difficult, but the dignity returned where it had been lost. The Dust Bowl was not simply bad luck or weather. Overplowing, monoculture farming, and the destruction of native grasses left the land defenseless. Economic pressure pushed farmers to take risks they couldn't afford. When the drought arrived, as it always eventually does, the system collapsed. The disaster forced the nation to confront a hard truth: nature has its limits. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal, the government launched one of the largest environmental recovery efforts in history. Farmers were taught new, better methods: crop rotation, contour plowing, and leaving fields fallow. Millions of trees were planted in massive windbreaks stretching across the plains, Native grasses were restored. The Soil Conservation Service was created to ensure better land stewardship. Slowly, the dust storms weakened, and by the late 1930s, the rain had returned and the land was again stabilized. The Dust Bowl changed American agriculture forever, but the question remains, could it happen again? Smaller dust events still occur, and drought is a real risk in many regions. The Dust Bowl stands as a warning from history, not just about farming, but about what happens when short-term gains outweigh long-term responsibility. The Dust Bowl reshaped the land, the economy, and the lives of millions. It reminds us that disasters are not always sudden. Sometimes they are built slowly and by 1,000 choices along the way. And the lesson remains clear. How we treat the land determines how long it can sustain us.